Hello WordNerds! Happy Tuesday and welcome back to our channel. So this month for me marks 10 years of working, I'm not going to say in the publishing industry because things I've done have been kind of publishing adjacent, but either publishing, writing, or books related. It has been 10 years, like 7 jobs or something like that, and I've learned a lot. So today I wanted to share some of the jobs that I've done with you guys in case you're all looking for ways to break into this industry that we love so much. Maybe some of this could be helpful. I can tell you what's worked for me, what hasn't, what I've learned from each of these experiences, and kind of give you a sense of what you might be able to expect if you were to get into any of these jobs. I'm going to film this over the course of a few days because it feels like a lot to summarize a whole decade, but if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below and I will absolutely check those out. So now let's jump into it. Okay, so job number 1, I started in September of 2010, which is nuts. It's hard to believe I've been working in Bookish and writing related things for that long, but that first job was at Indigo, which is Canada's big bookstore chain. I was working as a customer service rep, but the really cool thing here was that it was actually a brand new store that was just opening. So all of the employees, no matter where they worked or what shifts they were going to be on, all worked together for about a month or so, I think, where we were stocking the store and putting everything together, and it was just a really cool chance to get to know everybody. But after that was over, I was specifically on task, which was a 5 a.m. shift where you go in before the store is open, start putting books on the shelves and getting things organized for promotions and marketing and all of that stuff. I did do some regular shifts as well where I was selling books to customers, which was a lot of fun and didn't have to start at 5 o'clock in the morning, which was really nice. But it was also really cool just to get an early peek at all of the books and just spend quiet time in the morning putting things away and just seeing all of these books that I never would have looked at otherwise. Next up, I interned at Spencer Hill Press, which was a small press specifically focused on YA fantasy, which was absolutely perfect for me at the time. I got to pick my own job title, which was awesome and really set that tone of this is definitely a place I want to work. So my main job was monitoring an email address and responding to bloggers and whatnot, deciding where different arcs and early review copies were going to go of the Spencer Hill titles. It was really very cool. The role did eventually bump up to a small stipend paid position, which was awesome. So this was kind of my first real job in the publishing world, not just the book world, and I had so much fun and learned a ton. I did this for over a year, maybe 2 years, and got to do a little bit of editing as well and explore a few more elements of the publishing industry, plus making some really awesome friendships and connections, even though I was just kind of in my own corner working on this email address. It also really got me working with the blogger world for the first time and figuring out what review copies were, which was going to play a big role in my publishing jobs in the future, so that was kind of awesome. In late 2012, while I was still with Spencer Hill Press, I stumbled across this local micro press. I think she was just in the NaNoWriMo forums for my local area, talking about how she was putting out fantasy books, and I reached out just volunteering, saying, I'm looking to build up my resume. If there's any way I can help with marketing or anything like that, giving her a bit of my background, I'm happy to do it. And from there, somehow we started working together. Mostly we went to in-person conventions in the Toronto area for sci-fi and fantasy stuff. She usually had a table there where she was hand selling titles. So I was trying to help out with more of the reaching an online broader market, which was really interesting for both of us. She was creating all of these books by herself, just publishing 1 or 2 books a year, but she was doing all of the editing and hand drawing the cover art. It was really neat to see someone just making books and putting them out into the world. They weren't just her own books, so she had a couple of authors on her roster and they all worked together to make those books as successful as they could, and they learned a lot. And here's where it gets interesting, because in 2013, I self-published my first book. In late 2012, I was starting to hear rumblings about self-publishing, and it really got me thinking about how I had never really considered myself as a potential author. It was never something I thought I could do as a dream job because it seemed so unachievable. It was like a 1 in a million chance, and you had to write all of these different books and practice forever and ever, and it was just going to be not fun. It was going to suck out all of the joy in order to have a bunch of stories that would probably just sit in a desk forever. And to me, that sounded like not a good time. I know that's not actually the truth about the traditional publishing industry, but for me, once I knew that self-publishing was an option, it opened my eyes to what was actually possible, and I got very, very excited. So I started out by releasing a prequel novella, I think in early 2013, in order to lead into my debut book, which was Mortality, a YA zombie survival post-apocalyptic story, and then I published the second one later that year, I think. I found a fantastic editor and cover designer and actually got to see the publishing process through from beginning to end, which made me fall in love with self-publishing as a whole. Since then, I've written and published, I think, like 16 books across 2 or 3 pen names. I don't know. It's been a bit of a wild ride, And I have learned so much and made so many connections in the writing world because I decided to just jump in and be an author. I know the self-publishing industry and the publishing industry as a whole has changed so much since 2013, but it is still a vibrant and wonderful community and a very real career opportunity for anyone who is willing to put in the effort and the time. I absolutely recommend checking out any of the WordNerds videos on self-publishing if you want to learn more about that. And for me, because I loved it so much, this was also where I started up Patchwork Press with former WordNerd Erica Crouch. We basically both wanted to self-publish. I think I probably talked her into it. It sounds like something I would do. And we wanted to kind of put out our books under one brand name, eventually bringing in more authors so that we could all kind of help each other publish and it didn't have to be such a solo thing. Plus Erica and I got to play around in publishing even more books and putting out anthologies and just doing all kinds of different things because we had Patchwork Press as a way to bring it all together, and it was really such an amazing experience. So next up is the job where I started getting more into the marketing side of things. It was a kind of unconventional publisher that was trying a new business model. They were called Book Trope. They don't exist anymore, but basically you had authors and then you developed their team with editors and cover designers and marketing people, which is what I did, where everyone would take a percentage of sales. The publisher took a small chunk, but really not a lot. And everyone's working together as a team, but in a more self-publishing kind of way, which is what I wanted to do with Patchwork Press at one point, where everyone was working on their own books and then helping in the areas that they specialized in on other people's books, and everyone kind of benefited. But this was more structured. And I got really lucky because of my background. I was able to take on some of their more experienced authors who were looking for book managers. It was a lot of work for not a ton of income, and it was always a bit of luck of the draw of which authors were going to work out really well, that even though you got to pick who you worked with, you still couldn't really say how it was going to go, and there was no marketing budget, so it was really, can you make this author into some sort of functioning, I'm able to get paid for not only their own work, but also help you get paid for your work kind of thing with no budget and just social media and all of those things. So I learned a lot. And it did help pay the bills for a little while. It just was never really going to amount to how much time I was putting into it. I was never going to get that much out of it again, but I did make some really great connections. I worked with a really wonderful, wonderful group of authors. Four of my authors actually became kind of best friends with each other, which was really neat. I think they all keep in touch. I still have them on Facebook, and they're very close in each other's lives and started a podcast or something for a while. There were definitely some frustrating parts as well, where it was probably one of the few publishing jobs where I've really worked with other people as part of a team where you're all working towards the same plan. I don't always get to be the one that picks the plan, although I was generally doing book manager stuff, which doubled into marketing. So I did kind of help shape a plan, but it was still kind of, someone can just go off script and it can all go terribly wrong and there's not much you can do about it, which is frustrating for me. So yeah, it was all really interesting, and I learned a ton on the marketing front and met some really fantastic people, but the business model was an interesting experiment, just not that functional as a long-term thing. So I was there for 1.5 to 2 years-ish. Book Trope closed their doors, and that was that. So in mid-2013, I started what was probably my most real career job of all of this, in that it was full-time for me for a lot of it. It was something I was doing myself, but was also very client-oriented, and it was something I had to do pretty much every day. It became a huge part of my life, and that was the NetGalley co-op I was running through Patchwork Press, but it was very much its own thing. Essentially, NetGalley is a website where reviewers and bloggers and booksellers can go and request digital review copies of upcoming titles. Publishers go in through the website and they put up these titles with descriptions and their covers and the ebook files, and then anyone that they approve can download the book and then leave their review once they've read it. It is a great system. It was fantastic. So then in 2013, self-published authors were starting to figure out that even though they could never afford to be a full publisher account on their own, if they joined forces, having 20 or so authors, they could become a publisher where they could all take care of their own book and run this co-op where they could do everything themselves and get those benefits of NetGalley without having to be traditionally published, which was fantastic. So I was trying to get in on one of these, but it had already filled up. So there was an opportunity to start my own group, which worked out really nicely because I had just 20 authors right from the get-go who were just there and ready to go. In the beginning, they were handling their own review requests and all of that. But eventually, a lot of these authors were not feeling tech savvy enough to do all of that or just didn't have the time. So the co-op became very much a thing where I was going in and handling these requests based on a set list of criteria that the authors knew ahead of time, or they could give me the list of criteria for who they were looking to have approve these titles and then get their review copies out in the world without as much of an investment in their time or money as you would have to do if you were doing it on your own. So this became my life. Basically, I think we got up to maybe 100 titles at one point, definitely 80. And it was split up between authors who were handling their own and authors where I was doing all of these requests for something I was jumping in and doing every day, because at times it could add up really quickly depending on how quickly new titles were coming in. But I got a really good sense of the review and marketing world through this because I was seeing all of these bloggers and booksellers and basically anyone connected to the book world at some point or another could have been on NetGalley. Other than the first and the last of the month, which are usually pretty busy, this was typically a super flexible job that I could do around my own schedule, just hopping on and off as I needed throughout the day. But it could also be super stressful because not every author was thrilled with how things turned out. We did have so many wonderful authors who kept coming back again and again and just had titles on NetGalley pretty regularly, but there were also authors who were not happy with how it went. And it was on me to fix that in some way or another, maybe trying to figure out what didn't go right or trying to give them a different opportunity at a different time, or sometimes just accepting that not every book is going to do well in a reviewer setting. The other way it got stressful and why I ultimately wasn't able to continue was that I was essentially paying NetGalley for a set amount of spots at any given time, and whether or not I was able to fill those spots with authors who wanted to promote their books, I needed to pay for that. So sometimes it was really great and I was super busy and had a wait list, and sometimes I couldn't fill all of those slots in a given month, and that was on me to either figure out or just pay for out of my own pocket, which, as you can imagine, was super stressful. Ultimately, I decided to close down the co-op because the review ecosystem was just kind of moving in a lot of different directions. There were new competitors coming up specifically for self-published authors that were more focused on getting reviews onto Amazon, which is a big thing that a lot of self-published authors are looking for in reviewers. And it was more affordable than what NetGalley was able to offer as an equivalent. So I decided to just kind of step away before things got a little too bleak and I was stressing all the time about whether or not I was going to have to pay for this by myself. But these were a wonderful 5 years. I love NetGalley and everything they do. Their staff is amazing. I loved all of this and learned so much. So definitely awesome. Which leads me to where I am now with For the Words, which is something I started about 2 years ago. I'd first heard about For the Words, I'm pretty sure on the NaNoWriMo forums, and thought it would be fun to kind of get involved with the WordNerds. And I'm not exactly sure what the timeline of events was, but basically I started volunteering for them just because I believed in them so much and thought it was just such a great idea and so perfect for my own writing struggles. If you're not aware, For the Words is an online community based around a role-playing game for writers. So you are battling monsters as you are writing your words in their website or on your own writing processor of choice and putting them into the website. And those words go to help you beat monster battles. So to say a certain monster takes 100 words to beat in a set amount of time, you write those words, you beat that monster and get rewards and experience points and level up and go through all of these quests and adventures. And it's just so much fun and so great for my sometimes easily distracted brain, or when my brain needs a little bit extra excitement to really get into my writing for the day. Anyways, I started working for them in kind of a marketing capacity, helping them find partnerships and outreach opportunities, stuff like that. I joined the team as like an official staff member in the fall a couple of years ago, and have started doing kind of more marketing oriented events, like where I am teaming up with published authors or doing events on Twitter and Facebook and that kind of thing, as well as doing all of their social media posts. So while it is not specifically a publishing related job, it is very writing related and writer related, which I really love, helping that community that I've been a part of for so long, finding ways to get their work done, meet their goals, finish their projects. It's all just a lot of fun and a very different perspective on all of the writing community and the publication process. It's a little weird that I kind of started out in the bookstore where I was helping people who were buying the finished product. And then a lot of the middle part of my career has been helping people who are making the books or helping myself make the books. So getting the actual production side of things. And then now I am even a step further back where I am helping the actual writers and part of that community where we're all telling our stories together. So I really do feel like I've seen the full spectrum of the writing world and am planning to stick around with For the Words for the foreseeable future because I'm learning a ton and meeting so many wonderful people. It has been a really fantastic opportunity as well. So there you have it, 10 years of bookish careers, and it has been a wild, wild ride. Of course, it's not over yet. I do still work at For the Words and I'm still writing. Not as much this year, but hopefully I will be getting back into that fairly soon. It has been so much fun though, and I've learned so much, and it's been really cool to see just different aspects of this industry, what goes into making the book, writing the book, and then publishing the book, and then selling the book, although I kind of started in the opposite order. It has been so much fun, and I would recommend pretty much any of these jobs to anyone who loves books and publishing and just stories in general, because this is such a wonderful community that everyone who wants to should be able to be a part of in some way or another. If any of you have ever worked any bookish jobs, I would love to hear about them in the comments down below. And of course, don't forget to join us on Sunday for our next live chat. This one is going to be a write-in starting at 7:30 Eastern Time, so hopefully you'll be able to join us and we will all have a super productive evening telling our stories. In the meantime, happy reading, happy writing, and I'll see you next time.